look back at it, we may ask ourselves, what didn't happen in 2011? Natural disasters, from tsunami to floods, earthquakes, drought, human disasters, from wars to famine, social uprising, and political revolutions. And now, as 2012 begins, can we help but ask, what does this mean for me and also for us? The answer to this question means something different depending on who you are and what influence you have. Social, environmental, and economic global events affect us all, and our influence in the global arena determines many global events. Taking responsibility for what we do, for the byproduct of your actions, takes a lot of time, reflection, and honesty. But this responsibility is essential if you want to mitigate the disastrous effect of acting without an eye on the future. Because if you live it or not, based on the events of 2011, the future, ladies and gentlemen, is upon us. Perhaps there is no evidence that 100% is conclusive, but maybe those few extra factors generated tons of carbon dioxide released in the atmosphere caused the Japanese tsunami. Maybe our repeated failures to stimulate small and medium business creation is why we have so many homeless families. Maybe it was the lack of fund that led to eliminating that final Ministry of Education fire safety awareness program that caused the recent fire in Jeddah school, taking the lives of 2 school teachers and leaving preschool kids alone on a curb, watching the chaos unfold before them. Running a company gives power and influence, allows you to influence social and economic policies. If you use it right, you can use your influence to bring the world closer to understand that money means nothing without a bright future in which you can spend it. You need a stable social context, clean air, and an educated population. In brief, you need sustainable development. Today, I will introduce you to Rawabi Holding. A company was established 30 years ago to ensure that we could be in control over the influence we have in society. I will discuss how the structure of Rawabi Holding contributes to the sustainable development of Saudi Arabia. We will first look at what I believe to be all companies' role in society, how we execute that role through our brand and our values, the way in which our corporate governance structure ensures that this execution takes place effectively. We will look at how our objectives to expand and diversify inform our social objectives and our corporate social responsibility strategy. And finally, I will discuss how all of this provides insurance that the values we currently operate in light of don't disappear overnight. For companies today, watershed events such as those that we witnessed in 2011 should be viewed through a two-way lens. What did we do to cause this? And what can I do to eliminate it? Milton Friedman, an American economist and statistician and Nobel laureate, argued that business has a duty to bring prosperity to investors, employees, and consumers. He argued that businesses do not have a responsibility to benefit society. I pose this question to you. How many of you agree with him? Please, I can't see your hand, but I would like to see your hand, those who approve it or those who do not approve it. Well, if we diverge from this opinion and look at the influence companies have over society today, Perhaps you will join me in disagreeing with him. Why should the private sector be involved rather than the public sector alone? The public sector is responsible for development, but the private sector should be the major contributor to human development indicators. According to a report by the Saudi Faransi Bank in 2010, the public sector's contribution to the GDP in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is growing very fast. Under the Kingdom's ninth development plan, it's estimated that by 2014, 61% of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia GDP will be from the private sector. Companies are more and more influential, and with economic growth like this, you may have many positive outcomes. You have wealth generation, employment creation, investment attraction, and natural resources utilization, which will most likely only translate into more economic growth. Let's look at the potential influence of companies on people's lives today. At the turn of the millennium, only 10 years ago, the largest economies in the world were corporations, not countries. To mention just a few, Walmart, as example, was bigger than 161 countries. Mitsubishi was larger than Indonesia. General Motors was bigger than Denmark. Ford was bigger than South Africa, and Toyota bigger than Norway. So, how can we still serve our investors, our employees, and our consumers, but also use our influence and our monetary power to do good? The answer is sustainable development. Examining our influence through the interaction of environmental, social, and economic impacts, and ensure that what we do today guarantees a bright future for coming generations. This type of influence has become a necessity, not a choice. The government of Saudi Arabia realizes that the private sector companies are turning into big players, and they realize the importance of working together. Since the private sector is capturing so much of the market, perhaps they are also going to contribute to the negative sides of the economic growth. We must be reasonable also and admit that bad things happen in companies. Businesses can have serious impacts on society with lasting effect that influence their ability to prosper and develop. For example, the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, also known as the 2010 BP disaster in the Gulf of Mexico, the Exxon Valdez oil spill of 1989 in Alaska, and the Popal gas tragedy of 1984 attributed to Dow Chemical Company in India. Economic growth can mean a lot of good things at the same time, but it can mean a lot of bad things as well. To name a couple, business raises human rights questions. How you treat your employees, what kind of security you provide, whether or not you are including people in your upward growth. The private sector can participate in economic growth by addressing these issues by adopting reasonable human resource practices. Another example, business impact the lives of consumers, branding, marketing, education, etc. We influence what people buy, where they go, how they get there. Business can play a key role in making sure that the lives of consumers are positively impacted rather than negatively. They can focus on capturing emerging markets such as alternative energy, like solar power, rather than depleting what's available. These activities need to be embedded in a company's culture and monitored by those responsible for corporate social responsibility. According to the International Organization for Standardization, ISO 26000 guidance on social responsibility, A company